Okay, so on the page 79 worksheet, we did 1 and 2 already. Number 3, you're given 7.19932 feet going to the nearest eighth of an inch. So we take off the 7 feet, 0.19932 times 12 to make it inches. $2.3914, 184. So that means 2 inches. I take off the 2. 0.39184. What do I do with that? 8. It's eighths of an inch. So I want times 8. Which is 3.1. So that's closest to 3/8.
So you only use the first digit after the decimal.
That's all that matters, because you're going to round it off anyway. So if that first digit after the decimal point is a 4 or below, you're going to go down to the
So that's a 4,
Oh.
the next one's a 5.
doesn't matter.
So it's equal.
Doesn't matter. Because if this is, you're saying, what if I have like 3.48? Well, it's still less than 3.5, so it still goes down to 3. Remember, you're thinking about a number line. Here's the 3 and here's the 4. The absolute middle is 50, right? 0.50. 4/8 less than that, so it's got to go back to the 3. So you had 7 foot 2 and 3/8 inches for number 3. Number 4, 3 foot 5 1/4. 3 foot 5 1/4. 4, yep. No?
I got 3 foot 5 and 2/4.
2/8, you mean?
Oh, 2/8, yeah. No.
2/4.
Okay.
So let's take a look. I'm just going to do this on the calculator. I got 41.3167. 40, come on. 41.3167.
I don't know why I rounded up. It was 1 point, yeah. Rounded up.
Got it figured out?
1.26.
Okay. I'm just going to run through the process now. It's in inches, so I divide by 12 to get 3 point whatever. So subtract off my 3 whole feet. I'm going to multiply by 12, put that back into inches. So 5. Subtract off my 5 whole inches. Now I want this to the 4th, so I'm going to times 4. So yeah, 1.26, so it's 1. Number 5. 1 foot 7 3/8 inches. 12/64 reduces to 3/8. Number 6. 4 foot 2 and 5/16. How are we doing so far? Sure, which one do you want? Let's do number 7 here together. Number 7 is 85.2914 inches. So I'm going to put in the 85.2914. That's in inches. So first step is I got to make it feet. So I'm going to divide by 12. It's now feet. So that's 7 whole feet. So now I've used the 7 feet, so I'm going to take off the 7. I'm left with 0.1076 feet. I'm going to change it back into inches. So times 12. 1.29 inches, so that's 1 inch. Take off the 1. We've got 0.29 inches. Now this one is asking to go to 16, so times 16. 4.6, which is between 4 and 5, so it's 5 is the closest. So it's 5/16. I'm going to walk through number 8 too, because that one's a little different. Number 8 gives you 4.6281 feet. Here I can save a few steps because it's already in feet. I don't have to divide by 12. So I've got my 4 feet that I'm going to take off. So I'm going to enter in the calculator 0.6281. Well, that is feet. So my first step now, I've taken off the feet. I got to change that into inches. So 7.5, so 7 inches. And number 8 is going to the nearest 32nd. So take off my 7. And then times 32. 17.19, so it's close to 17. What do you think? Number 9 comes out closest to exactly 4 foot 9 inches. Number 10 comes out closest to exactly 16 feet 4 inches. How many you got both 9 and 10 right? Okay, let's take a look. So you got 16.3343 feet. So that's the 16 feet, right? So I'm just going to take the 0.3343 times 12 to make it inches. That gives me 4. I'm going to subtract 4. And I want this to the 32nd, so I'm going to take that times 32. It's 0.3. That's less than a half. So it's going to be 0.30 seconds. So that's why it's just 4 inches. Now number 9 actually worked just the opposite, by the way. Number 9, they had 4.7522 feet. So that's where I got the 4 feet. So I'm just going to take the 0.7522 times 12 to make it inches. So that's 9. Oh, that works exactly the same. That's where I got the 9. And I take the point, come on, subtract off the 9, and times 16ths for that one. So once again, I get like 0.4. It's less than a half, so it's 0.16ths. The other option would be if I got like 15.7 sixteenths. I'd have to round it up to the next whole inch. If I had more than 15.5 sixteenths or 31.5 30 seconds or whatever. 11 and 12 are a little trickier. Carpenter uses a surveyor's tape to measure the height. 52.81 feet, convert that into feet inches. Well, that's the same. That is 52 feet for number 11. 52 feet, 9 3/4 inches. They're asking us to go backwards. We have 2 feet, 5 1/4 inches. So what we're going to do on this one, we start out with the fraction and work our way backwards. We've got a quarter is 1 divided by 4. Try that again. 1 divided by 4. So the calculator changes that to 0.25. Now I'm going to add my whole inches to that, 0.5 inches. So now I got 5.25 inches. That's my 5 1/4 inches part of that. Now I'm working it back to feet. So what do I have to do to that to make it feet? Divide by 12. Now I've got to add my whole feet or 2, so I'm going to add 2 feet to that. So that's where I get 2.4375. By decimal feet, number 12. What do you think? Okay. The packet I gave you, the bigger packet, has clearance fits and interference fits in it. We talked about those a couple weeks ago. So I'm going to have you guys work on that. Let me pull out a copy so I can take a look at exactly what I want to do. So in that packet, if you want to read through it, I'm starting on page 110 in that packet. Through
23 packet?
Yep. Through page 114.
Which one? Say it again.
Page 110 to 114. You said you've already done a little bit of gauge block buildup in the shop? We guys talked about that?
Very little.
Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about gauge block buildup then right now. So if you want to flip then to page, it's 146 in the packet. It comes right after 114. I jumped from unit 23 to unit 29. If you look at our gauge block set down there, it does go down to a 10,000th of an inch, but you'll notice it's not just a 10,000th of an inch, it's 0.1001 inches. Because something a 10,000th of an inch thick would be so thin it would crumple up and get damaged. So it's 1,001 10,000ths. And that's the same for all of them. So when we're doing a gauge block buildup, we have to start with the 10,000ths and work our way backwards. For example, let's say we need to build 2.486 inches. So we're looking at our blocks, available blocks there. We must first build the 10,000. So we have to get a 6. We've only got one block on that whole list as a 6 in the 10,000s. What is that? That's in the 9 block series, 0.1006. So that's the first block we're going to use is the 0.1006. And we subtract that off. We've got 0 here, 7, 8, 3, 2. So now we've got to worry about getting the 7 in the thousandths place, in the third decimal place. Now we do have a few different blocks that have a 7 there. This is an 8. You'll notice if you look through those blocks, all the blocks that go to the nearest hundredth, it's either a 0 or a 5 in that hundredths. So with this second block, we want to do two things. We want to eliminate the 7. So we must have a 7 in that thousandths place. But we want to make the 8 has to become either a 0 or a 5. Now there is nothing there with an 8 in the hundredths place. So we're not going to be able to get that to a 0. So to get it to a 5, it would have to be a 3, right? So whatever we're going to use, we don't know what's in the tenths, but it has to be 3, 7 in the hundredths and thousandths place. So what do we have as a 3, 7? 0.137. So that is our next block, the 0.13. So we got two of them so far, the 0.1006 and 0.137. We subtract the 0.052. So now we've got that 0.25 we got to get rid of. We're going to use the 250 block. That gets us down to 2 whole inches, and then we're going to use the 2-inch block. So it takes 4 blocks to build that up. Does that make sense? Why are you building up? Okay, you do a gauge block build up for a couple of reasons. One would be to calibrate a device if you want to calibrate a measurement or whatever. Usually you're just using a single gauge block to calibrate a micrometer or caliper. Gauge block buildups then can be used for shimming. Have you guys seen a sine bar yet? A sine bar is a precisely machined piece, has rounded edges, and from center of circle to center of circle, it's usually either 5 inches or 10 inches. Exactly. I mean, we're talking to within a 10,000th or 100,000th of an inch. They're then done that precisely. So that if you need to get a specific angle, and we'll talk about this more next semester in the trig. If you need to get a specific angle here, let's say you got to drill a hole or you got to, machine a corner off at an exact angle, you set that sine bar up and then you figure out exactly what height you need here to make that sine bar sit at that angle. Then you build up your gauge blocks to get that exact height. So then you set up your jig like that, you clamp it down, and then there it is. That's your setup. Now this would not be a production jig, obviously, because it's not real sturdy. But if you're doing your tooling to create your production jigs, you'd use this to create your angles and stuff. Let's do another one, and then we'll take a look at the metric gauge blocks. So let's say I want to build up 1.0394 inches. Where am I going to start? Yeah, I got to get rid of that 4/10,000. Well, yeah, 0.1004. Even though there's a 0 in my tenths, my tenths of an inch place there, I have to do 0.1004 because I got to get rid of that 10,000s. Got 0, 9, 3, 9. I have to borrow from my 1 whole inch now and subtract. So that's the first block I've used. My second block has to get rid of the 9, and remember, this digit either has to go to a 5 or a 0. So it's going to end up going to a 0 here. So I need 3 and 9 in those digits. Does everybody see why I need a 3 and 9 in the hundredths and thousandths digits? We've got to eliminate the 9, and then this one either has to go to a 0 or a 5. So this is going to be a 9, this is going to be a 3. What's going to go in the first one? 1. So 0.139 is the block I'm going to use. This is now just 0.8. And I do have a 0.8 block. So there's the 3 blocks I'm going to use. Any questions? 0.8 block is down in the 19 block series. 0.800. What's that? Okay. We're given a specific measurement, and we've got to build that measurement out of these precise machine blocks. So that's why we got to start with the last digit. We start with the smallest piece first, because we've only got a certain number. That first 9 block series up there, we've only got 9 of those that go down to the 10,000. So the first step, we've got to use one of those blocks to get rid of the 10,000. Let's do one more with inches here. Let's say we've got 3.2548 inches. So the first thing, I've got to get rid of the 8. Got to get rid of that last digit. I always start at the end of the number and work my backwards. So the only thing that I have that has an 8 in the 10,000ths is 0.1008. So I subtract that. That's 0, 4, 5, 1, 3. Now, I have to get rid of the, so that's step 1. Step 1 is always get rid of 10,000s. Eliminate the 10,000s. That digit. In step 2, I want to do 2 things. I want to eliminate the thousandths digit and make the hundredths digit into a 0 or a 5. So for this next step, I've got to get rid of the 4. So there's got to be a 4 there. And this has to either become a 0 or a 5. Well, it's already a 5. Could I possibly make it a 0? Well, I'd have to have a 54, and I don't have a 54. So I'm going to have to leave it as a 5. So that's got to be a 0, 4. So if I look up there, it's going to be a 104 is what I'm going to use. So I use the 104 in the 49 block series. So I've got 0050.3. Now I've got to get rid of the 5. That's step 3. If it's not a 0, I got to eliminate that hundredths place. So it isn't a 0, it's a 5. So I'm looking down there. it's got to be a 0, 5. So in the 19 block series, I'm going to use the first one. It's a 0, 5 block. So now that's just 3 whole inches. Well, 3 whole inches, I've got a block down in my bottom 4 block series that's exactly 3 inches. Now you'll notice if you add up all those in the 4 block series, you got 10 inches total. You really don't want to build anything much over 10 inches with gauge blocks. Metric gauge blocks are on the next page. They work pretty much the same way. Let's say I want to build something that is 12.473 millimeters. I got to start by eliminating the 3. So whatever I have is going to get rid of that 3. What do I have that is going to get rid of the 3? Yeah, 1.003. Very similar to the inch ones, only this is the ones in front of the decimal point here is all. So I subtract, that's a 0, 7, 4, and 11. So now I've got to get rid of the 7. There's only one option for getting rid of the 7. There is no, I don't have to worry about taking this to a 0 or a 5. I just got to get rid of the 7. The only thing to get rid of the 7 is a 1.07. So that's my second gauge block, is 1.07, 004.01. Now I've got to get rid of the 4. I'm going to use a 1.4. So 9.000 is what I have left. So I use a 9 millimeter block out of the 9 block series. What do you guys think? Not horrible? Okay. So
So you just get rid of the 4, 7?
Yep.
Or just the 7?
Well, you got to get rid of the 7 first because there's nothing that, in the metric, it's all 0 in the 10th digit when you got a 100th digit. So starting on page 148 of the packet, then, through page 149, there is 1 through 49, the odds as well. So basically, you've got this packet and that quiz to work on.